Sit down, children, and let me tell you how my family created the first Thanksgiving in America. The first English speaking settlement in America was established in Jamestown, Virginia in 1607. Those were harsh times in Jamestown. Living conditions were terrible. The settlers were homesick. Although the ground was swampy, it was very difficult to plant the land because of a very long drought had occurred, preventing plants from growing. In addition, the settlers also didn't receive supplies they were expecting from England in order to survive due to the storms in the Atlantic. Many people became ill and they died, but they still kept coming to the New World, seeking a better economic life than they had in England. 3 severe years passed, and by the spring of 1610, only 60 out of the 490 original settlers survived. These 3 years became known as the starving time in Jamestown. The fourth great grandfather of our fifth great aunt, Thomas West, also known as Baron de War, headed a contingent of 150 men and landed in Jamestown, Virginia on June 10th, 1610. It was just in time to persuade the last surviving original settlers not to give up and go back home to England. As a veteran of English campaigns against the Irish, our ancestor, Baron de War, employed Irish tactics against the Indians. His troop raided villages, burned houses, torched the cornfields, and stole provisions, thus enabling the survival of Jamestown. 11 years after the settlement of Jamestown, in the summer of 1618, four gentlemen met in London to negotiate the formation of a company to start the town and hundred at Berkeley, in the colony of Virginia. A hundred is like a town with all the land around it. Their motive was strictly profit making. Those four Essex men were William Throckmorton, our first cousin 8 times removed; Richard Berkeley, our 10th great uncle; George Thorpe, our first cousin 10 times removed; and John Smith, the grandfather of our 7th great aunt. They were all related by blood or marriage, which is why they're all our ancestors. As was the custom in England, the settlers celebrated their fall harvest with a festival. The 50 remaining colonists and roughly 90 Wampanoag Indians attended this festival. The kindness of the native Indians saved Jamestown from the frosty winter death that year. Mossashot, chief of the Wampanoag tribe, signed a treaty with the settlers early in 1620. As a result, the two groups enjoyed a peaceful coexistence. Also in that year, from the funding of our Jamestown 100 ancestors, the 8th great-grandfather of our cousin, Christopher Jones, sailed the Mayflower to America. By early 1621, the European immigrant settlers had built crude huts and a common house on the shores of Plymouth Bay. Soon, neighboring Indians began to build relationships with the settlers. Squanto, a local Indian who had been kidnapped and taken to England nearly a decade before, served as an interpreter with the local tribes. Squanto taught the settlers to fertilize the soil with dry fish remains and produce a stellar corn crop. By autumn of 1621, the settlers had much to be thankful for. The Indians and the settlers had the first Thanksgiving in America. They celebrated for several days, dining on goose, venison, duck, turkey, fish, and of course, cornbread, the result of the bountiful corn harvest. All went well until 1622, when our Christian colonist cousin, Mr. Thorpe, wanted to convert the Indians to Christianity. After refusing to convert, the colonists declared war against the Indians as savages and killed most of them and seized their land. Our family ancestors, the Harrisons, bought a good portion of the Jamestown Hundred property, and our eighth great grandfather, Benjamin Harris, who was president, built a beautiful plantation on the property. It was our sixth cousin, 4 times removed, President Lincoln, who declared Thanksgiving a national celebration in 1863. The Plymouth and Jamestown settlers simply celebrated it as survival and hopes of good fortune in the years that lay ahead. And thus, Thanksgiving was born.